Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to walk you through what makes a good financial planning and analysis solution. Here's my agenda. I'm going to break it down into the close consolidation reporting process and then the FP&A process. Here's a brief bio about myself. I've been working with financial data for 35 years. I've seen the transition of this data in terms of leveraging business analytical tools for the past 30 years and the evolution of those tools and the demands of businesses as well. You also see that I've worked with some very large companies. I've actually deployed over 300 data and AI solutions, so I'll give you my perspective near the end of various solutions. When I talk about financial close solutions, now this is just a snapshot. It doesn't necessarily mean that on another list it isn't different, but it just kind of gives you an idea on the platform. So when I was heavily involved with doing planning analytics on the cloud as a software as a service solution, our competitors back then were typically very small. The market wasn't as saturated with players. If you fast forward now a decade later, is it's really becoming more and more competitive, and you're seeing more and more solutions come in with an Excel based solution with an add-in to work with AI through other modeling capabilities, which I'll get into further down the road. But this kind of gives you an idea in terms of target area, 50 to $1 billion business, which is kind of preferred. But what's missing in there is under 50 million, which is a sizable market. And problem with that market always has been scaling. Like, what makes a good consolidation solution? Well, consolidations, depending on the organization, can be extremely complex. They can be middle complex and low complexity. It all really depends on your ownership structure and the complexity of your exchange rates and how you roll things up, and as well as the intercompany management. Any solution I've seen evolutions of different solutions, the nuts and bolts of them all do about the same. What you have to look at is your ability to handle data loads and the complexity of those solutions, and the overall maintenance and upgrades are critical in terms of how you manage the statutory, legal, and group consolidation. This gives you an idea where FPA solutions are in terms of the leaders. And if you look up at the top things there, you're seeing Oracle, Anaplan, OneStream, Workday, Board, Kluwer, and Jedox. And then you're seeing the challengers, which is IBM Vina. And then you're seeing some other ones like Profix in that. What's missing in there is some other ones that are up and coming, like a Data Rails. Um, they're also coming up, and they're targeting specific markets they're going after as well. What makes a good FPA solution? In a nutshell, it's really about the user experience. When you're starting to talk about building things in models, you really want an intuitive modeler that helps you to build rules out. The more complexity the rules are, it's really difficult to do it. The other thing too is you want to be looking at the security side, how you secure things, especially when you get into payroll and other areas that you need to lock them down in terms of Cuban element security to do that. You're not going to get away from an Excel add-in interface. There's a lot of marketing stuff I've seen over the last couple of years and part of my transition where people continue to push people off Excel. My user bases have always been 50% Excel and 50% web interface. So, but I won't go into all this, but this kind of gives you an idea of some of the key areas that you're looking at as well. What has changed since 2015? Now, I've only highlighted a few companies here. This is not all comprehensive list here, but it just gives you an idea what I see. In the last little bit is I've seen some money flow into companies like Aleph and Data Rails and other ones, including partnerships evolutions, right? AI tools is an interesting area. Um, my partners I worked with over my career basically had their own data science team, and they were using Python to work with AI to build out supply chain management. So the ability to work with AI has been there. It's just that you would like it in the product, embedded in the product, and that's happening more and more. Where I'm seeing a rise in Excel based tools, and the reason that is organizations want something that can plug and play with Excel and have a simplified user interface, and that's something to bear in mind. The other problem that you watch out with Excel-based tools, there's a struggle, is how you scale them. Sometimes they work very well localized, but when you get into a wide area network, there's challenges. This has been my experience that I've seen over the last many years. Part of the problem I've seen when you get in larger, bigger deployments is scalability and sizing issues, especially when you're starting to deal with, depending on where you're connecting with your data center. And it's gotten a lot better now. When I first was early on, when we were doing SaaS as a software as a service, we didn't have that many data centers, but there's more appetite now for countries themselves to put their own data centers in there. So you're going to start to see applications probably get split out more there, because part of it is about the data residency issues. Companies do not want their data residing outside another country. Balancing rules with feeding of data is critical, especially when you're dealing with large size stocking SKUs and all that, and for profitability modeling, all that. You want to balance out when it makes sense to use rules and when it makes sense to feed the data. As I mentioned earlier, I'm seeing consistently 50% of the users are split between the Excel add-in as well as the web interface. Scaling is a challenge in terms of licensing cost and overall performance. Usually, depending on how your offerings are, you might max out at a certain size of data, a data tier, and that's something to bear in mind. How you roll out upgrades is critical. My clients in the past were doing them for Excel like semi-annually, right? Unless there was a critical fix they needed, they would roll it out. And then I've seen the constant flavor in even all the marketing messages, and I'm not going to pick on companies because companies are going to pivot or message their products in their own way to sell them. But I am seeing overselling of solutions. And overselling of solutions doesn't benefit anybody. It just puts you in an awkward position to deliver on things, and including adoption and expansion of that product, or even them walking away. Here's some FPA links that I've done. You can search me over LinkedIn, and I've got multiple blogs around this because I'm passionate to share knowledge around this, especially as I've worked with multiple partners across geography and industry over the past decade or so. Here's some additional links. This is just more of the marketing stuff that I do around trends, because I integrate the trends with when I'm having discussions with clients. So here's my contact information. So overall, what I was trying to accomplish here is that there is a rise. I've seen webinars being set up. The care and concern I would say with anybody, that you make sure that you put a team together to do a proper assessment. Just because it's new to the market might not always make the most sense for it to come to you, right? And those companies are struggling with just building out their infrastructure, their ability to upgrade those models. The other thing too is you want to look at is the customer support is very critical in terms of getting your caseload resolved, as well as how product management's engaged with their upgrade cycles. So there's a lot of nuances that go into selecting things. I always encourage you to work with an expert, somebody like myself or a qualified business partner, to walk you through the process of selecting something, or even on an upgrade. I've recommended doing like health checks at least every 6 months or at least once a year to ensure that how your model is performing is optimized in many ways. So this presentation was to give you some guidance in here. I'm not picking on any particular software or talking down anything. I'm just giving you my experience in terms of where I've seen success and where I've seen challenges as well. Thank you.